Welcome to Hiraeth, the home of modern Welsh politics. The UK general election campaigns are barrelling towards their conclusion, and due to the new constituencies, a record level of retirement, and the likelihood of a change in the political direction of the UK, we are expecting many new faces elected to the House of Commons from Wales. We're taking the opportunity to speak to some of these new candidates about their campaigns, their policies, and their parties. And Monmouthshire is that rare thing in Wales, a constituency that more often than not returns a Conservative MP. Following the boundary review, it is more or less reflecting the Monmouthshire local authority now, which has perhaps set the tone for potential change in this election when Labour became the biggest party on the council in 2022. Represented by the Conservative David T.C. Davies for nearly a quarter of a century in the Commons, polls have suggested that change may be in the air. And the main challenger to the Secretary of State for Wales is Councillor Catherine Fookes, who is our guest today. Hello, Catherine.
Hi, Florida. Great to see you.
Thanks so much for joining us. But for our listeners who might not know much about you, could you tell us a little about who you are and why you're standing for election this time round?
Sure. So I'm a mum of two, and Monmouthshire has been a fantastic place to bring up my kids. I've lived here 25 years. And I've been involved in the community for a very long time. I'm a school governor and, as you said earlier, a county councillor. I'm also a farmer's daughter. I grew up on a farm, so I really understand the issues that farmers here are facing and the stresses, the financial stresses and strains that they face in trying to make ends meet. I've got a small holding, which people may not know. I've got 12 breeding ewes and 10 lovely lambs born this year. I'm also an environmentalist. I've been a campaigner for a charity. But most recently, I've been CEO of a women's equality charity. And there I've been really advocating for equality for women in the workplace and in public life. I'm standing because after 14 years of the Tories, I just felt angry, and I'm the kind of person who wants to get involved and change things rather than just sit on the sidelines. I want to stand up for people in Monmouthshire, fight inequality, and just make sure we can boost everybody's living standards, move on from this cost of living crisis and deliver some stability.
Thanks, Catherine. So obviously, like we said in the intro, the map of this constituency has changed. It's now the whole of the Monmouthshire local authority. How do you see that new electoral map affecting your campaign?
I think it's really difficult to say. Boundary changes are a complete unknown quantity. David T.C. Davies is also a formidable opponent. He's been the MP for 19 years, so I am campaigning really hard and fighting hard for every vote. I'm really enjoying getting to know the southern area of the county, the new area, which is Roggett, Magor, Undie and Caldicott. Yeah, and I think people on the doorstep really want change. That's the main thing that I'm hearing.
So obviously, you mentioned your main opponent there, David T.C. Davies. He's been MP for that constituency for 19 years, and previous to that was the Senedd member, of course, for the area as well. How would you rate his performance over the last quarter of a century representing Monmouth and Monmouthshire?
I think I'm going to leave it to the electorate on July the 4th to ultimately judge his performance. But what I've seen time and time again is that he seems to be the Secretary of State working against Wales and not for Wales. And, the government that he sits with has crashed the economy and presided over, certainly in the past 5 years, absolute chaos. He backed Liz Truss for leader. And in fact, funnily enough, she had to resign, didn't she? And then a week later, I got a leaflet to my door, which said he supported Liz Truss. So that was A, out of date, and B, just showed how misguided he was in supporting her.
On a personal level, I'm sure you've had to have numerous conversations with him over the last couple of months in campaigning, but how have you found your own personal relationship with David over the last couple of months during the course of the campaign?
It's good. Our sons both go to the same school. They're friends, or in fact, they've both just finished their A-levels at Monmouth Comprehensive. So, I've known David for many years, and our relationship is absolutely fine. Yeah, we chat about stuff. not politics. No, we're perfectly friendly to each other. Things can change a bit in hustings, obviously, where you've got to attack the really poor record of the Conservatives over the past 14 years and the damage they've done to our country. The price of your average mortgage has gone up £340 a month, rent £80 per month, and so those are the things that people really care about and are talking about on the doorstep. It's the cost of living crisis. So those are the things that I try to highlight, that Labour would bring change in that regard.
Obviously, I'm assuming there are ideological differences between you, otherwise you'd not be in different parties. But you're saying that it's what the Conservative government practically has done over the last 14 years that is the main source of your differences.
Well, no, I think also I'm running a really positive campaign, and the campaign that I see coming from my Conservative opponent is very negative. It's consistently just attacking things that other people have done and other decisions that have been made, and I'm just not going there. I'm running a positive campaign. I'm also, very different. There are things that he said, like in 2016, he said that man-made climate change didn't exist. I'm an environmentalist and I care deeply about the environment, and I made that a central part of my campaign. So he's also said same-sex marriage is, in inverted commas, barking mad, whereas I absolutely embrace diversity and welcome it. So, there are some really big differences there, but I'm really clear that what Labour could deliver in this election is, putting the adults back in charge, getting the economy back on track, and delivering hope for people, because people have really lost hope.
So you mentioned that the cost of living crisis is one of the big things coming up on the door. Apart from that, what else is coming up when you're speaking to constituents?
All sorts of things. Cost of living is absolutely number one. I met a woman in Abergavenny the other day, for example, who she worked in horticulture, and you could tell from her hands, because they looked like she'd been gardening, and working really hard with the soil all her life. And she was saying to me how difficult it was for her to make ends meet now. She can't even go for a coffee. She can't go to the cinema. She can't just lead a normal life and go out and enjoy life with her friends, because she hasn't got the money to do it. She hasn't got the money to run a car anymore. And this woman has paid in all her life. So these are the kind of stories I'm getting day in, day out from the campaign trail. The other thing that's coming up is people feel that they've lost faith in politics. That's another thing that's coming up. There's a certain amount of apathy because people can say, you're all the same. I don't think we are all the same. I'm new to this, and I want to give people hope and a fresh start for Monmouthshire. We've had, the PPE kind of VIP fast lane. We've had Partygate during COVID, and we've got a Prime Minister in place now who's actually been fined for breaking the law. I understand why people feel that politicians are all the same, but I try to explain on the doorstep that we're not all the same, that I'll be a really strong voice for Monmouthshire. As Keir Starmer has clearly said many times, we must put country before party.
So what kind of policies are you putting forward that can sort of deal with the issues that your constituents are facing?
Obviously, the economy is at the heart of everything we're doing, but we've talked a bit about that. But in terms of something that's very particular here, that comes up in some areas of the constituency, particularly Monmouth, Abergavenny, Chepstow, is the rivers. So we've got the River Wye running right through the area where I'm a county councillor in Monmouth. Obviously, that's a river that comes from Wales into England and back into Wales. We've also got the River Usk, and it's really, really important to people that we clean up our rivers. And I just think that the Conservatives have not done enough in the past 14 years. Labour are saying we will make Ofwat able to impose a ban on water bosses getting their bonuses. So we're going to make the polluter pay, and we're going to make the enforcers enforce. And I'm really proud, actually, on that campaign around rivers, to have Fergal Sharkey backing my campaign. And he came down to the River Wye recently and said he'd endorse me, which I know he will hold me to account on this. So I'm really keen on making sure we clean up our rivers.
There's always, as Tony Blair said, when you announce a policy, you lose some voters. You just got to hope you win more back every time you announce a policy. So what policy proposed by the Labour Party during this campaign has caused you think, the most difficulty?
I don't think there is one particular policy that's causing a difficulty on the doorstep. I think there's a couple of things I'd say to this. So one is some people are saying, you're not going far enough. I want you to be bolder on the environment, or, why aren't you immediately scrapping the 2-child limit? And my answer to that is, if only we could, but we can't, because we're going to inherit, if we are privileged enough to be elected, and, only postal votes have been cast so far, going to inherit an extremely difficult economic situation, one where we've had austerity for 14 years and where our economy is flatlining. So what I would say to people is, please be patient. We need to get our economy back on track before we can do anything else. But the second thing I'd say around this, in terms of the difficult policy area, is this thing about people having lost faith in politics, and getting people engaged. That is really difficult. And I think, I will just be, if I'm privileged enough to be elected, a really local, present and visible person in the constituency. And I will really listen to people and try and get people engaged in democracy, which is something that I did in my previous role as CEO of a women's equality charity.
So obviously, this question usually is about who the main challenger is to you, and that's pretty obvious given that you have an incumbent MP. But do you see this as a 2-horse race? Is there going to be a big groundswell for a third-party candidate in your constituency?
I think it is a 2-horse race, realistically. There are some fantastic other candidates, and particularly great independent candidate. And I think they all offer, interesting viewpoints and some single issue kind of ideas. But ultimately, yes, it's a 2-horse race. And David's represented this constituency for a long time. It's going to be really challenging to win here. So absolutely every vote will count. And I'm out either door knocking or phoning voters every single day at the moment. Now we're 1 week to go. So yeah, it's exciting. But yeah, I think it is a 2-horse race here.
You obviously have an in-depth knowledge about your individual campaign, but what do you feel like the mood music is like across the country as we head into this election? Are you expecting, like the polls, a big Labour landslide victory?
No, I am definitely not. I think that whole landslide narrative is just the Tories being absolutely desperate, and they're kind of talking up this idea of a supermajority to distract from their own kind of disastrous election campaign. We had Rishi Sunak launching the campaign, being soaked in Downing Street, and they've lurched from one disaster to another. Then we had something that has come up on the doorstep, which is the fact that he didn't stay at the D-Day commemorations till the end of the day. And that has gone down really badly with our veteran community, of which we've got a huge community in Monmouthshire. So they're just trying to distract the Tories from these disasters they've had, and from Bettinggate and so on. So I would say nothing is decided until July the 4th. So people need to really get out there and vote for change if they want it.
Do you think you'll be part of that change, Catherine? Do you think you're going to win your seat?
I hope so, but I'm working really hard, and I've got an amazing campaign team working around the clock to help me do that. But ultimately, the decision is in Monmouthshire's hands.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Catherine. We're going to wish you well with the rest of your campaign. Obviously, for disclosure, listeners can find out all the candidates standing in the Monmouthshire constituency in the show notes. But if people would like to hear more from you, where can they find out about you and your campaign on social media?
So they can find out more about me. I'm on Facebook, Catherine Fookes for Monmouth. I'm on Twitter at Catherine Fookes, and the same on Instagram. And I've got a website, catherinefookes.com. Please get in touch.
Thanks, Catherine. Thank you for listening to Hiraeth. If you like what you heard, please don't forget to subscribe, rate and review.